I am 36 years old, and for the past few years, life has been complicated. It all started when my father's health began to decline. He had been dealing with kidney problems for a long time, but things got worse over the last couple of years. At first, he was able to move around on his own, but then it became clear he needed more help. I'm his only son, so naturally, it fell on me to step up. Twice a week, every Wednesday and Saturday, I take him to his dialysis appointments. Now, Saturday isn't a problem. It's my day off, and I don't mind spending it helping my dad. But Wednesdays, that's a different story. I had to get special permission from my boss to leave early on those days and make up for the lost hours at night. I've been at the company for 10 years, and my boss has always been understanding with en takemakizingen, so that arrangement worked out. However, the real issue wasn't with work. It was at home. My wife, Abel, wasn't exactly thrilled when she found out about my new routine. She was okay with it at first, or at least that's what I thought. But as the weeks went on, I could tell she was getting more and more frustrated. She started making these little comments, nothing too direct, but you could feel the tension building. She didn't understand why I had to spend so much time with my dad, especially when we weren't exactly on the best terms for years. See, my dad and I had a complicated relationship. He wanted me to take over his business, but I went a different route. I got into tech, and even though I was making good money, he never really approved of my choice. After I got married, he flat out told me he was cutting me out of his will. He said he would donate everything to charity. I didn't care at the time. I told him I could make my own way, and I did. But that decision left some bitterness between us. Still, when his health went downhill after my mom passed away, I couldn't just leave him on his own. I mean, he has a nurse and all, but I'm his son. It felt like my responsibility. Every time I took him to the dialysis center, I knew I was doing the right thing. It wasn't easy, though. The trips to the clinic became part of my routine, but it also became a race against the clock. Wednesday nights were the worst. I'd rush home from work, pick up my dad, take him to the clinic, and then get back home late, usually to find Abel irritated. At first, she would plan stuff on Saturdays, parties, cleaning the house, taking the kids out, but I always had to tell her I couldn't make it. That's when the fight started. She didn't like me prioritizing my dad's needs over the plans she had. It got to the point where I was constantly running back and forth, trying to keep everyone happy, but failing miserably. It wasn't just Saturdays, either. On Wednesdays, after coming back from the clinic, I still had work to finish up, but Abel would always find some way to interrupt that too. She'd go out, leaving me to deal with the kids, or plan something last minute that would throw my whole evening off. It was starting to wear me down. My father, even in his condition, could sense it. He'd offer to have the nurse take him to the appointments so I wouldn't be so stressed, but I couldn't let go of that responsibility. Those car rides to the clinic were really the only time I had left with him, and I wasn't willing to give them up, no matter how much chaos was waiting for me at home. Things really started to get worse between me and Abel after a few months of this routine. The tension that had been building finally began to spill over. At first, she tried to play it off, acting like it was no big deal, but I could see it in her face every time I said I had to take my dad to dialysis. She'd sigh, roll her eyes, or mutter something under her breath. It was like she was keeping score, waiting for me to slip up, and it felt like I couldn't do anything right in her eyes. One night, after coming back from dialysis, I found her sitting in the living room, arms crossed. I already knew it was going to be a fight just by the look on her face. She started asking why I was wasting so much time on my dad. He doesn't even care about you, she said. He's never appreciated anything you've done for him, so why are you bending over backward for him now? I didn't have an answer that would make sense to her. I just told her the same thing I'd been saying for months. He's my dad, and he needs me. That wasn't enough for her. Abel felt like I was choosing my father over our family. She pointed out that I was missing time with her and the kids. It was hard to argue with that because I knew she had a point. I wasn't around as much, especially on Saturdays, and even on Wednesdays, I was rushing through everything just to make sure I could keep up. But what was I supposed to do? Let my dad go through all of this alone? Abel wasn't hearing it. She told me straight up that she never got along with my parents, even before my mom passed away. That wasn't news to me, but I didn't realize how deep it went until she started talking about how my dad had cut me out of the will. She kept saying that because he had already given his money to charity, there was no point in sticking around for him. I couldn't believe she was even bringing that up. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about showing up for my father when he had no one else. The argument started becoming a regular thing. It was almost like clockwork. Every Saturday and every Wednesday, I'd come back from taking my dad to the clinic, and Abel would be waiting for me with some kind of complaint. Either she had made plans that I wasn't a part of, or she was upset that I wasn't doing enough around the house. She'd say I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about her or the kids. I tried explaining that this wasn't permanent, that my dad wouldn't be around forever, but she just wasn't having it. What really hurt was when she started bringing the kids into it. She'd make comments in front of them. Things like, "Your dad's too busy with Grandpa to spend time with us." Or, "Maybe if Grandpa wasn't around, we could do more fun things." I could see the confusion in their faces, especially my youngest. They didn't understand what was going on, but they were definitely feeling the tension between me and their mom. It reached a point where I was dreading coming home after dialysis, not because I didn't want to be with my family, but because I knew it was going to turn into another fight. Abel was making it harder and harder for me to keep up with my responsibilities at home. It felt like no matter what I did, it was never enough. If I focused on my dad, I was a bad husband and father. If I tried to make up for lost time at home, I was still the guy who wasn't doing enough for the family. The worst part was how cold things got between us. We went from being a team to practically living as strangers in the same house. The fights were constant. And when we weren't fighting, we were just nothing. No conversation, no connection. I started sleeping in the guest room some nights just to avoid another blow-up. I didn't recognize my marriage anymore, and honestly, I wasn't sure it was going to survive. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. I had just come back from taking my dad to dialysis. It had been a rough day. He wasn't feeling well. The appointment took longer than usual, and I was exhausted by the time I got home. As soon as I walked through the door, I knew something was off. Abel was pacing the living room, her face flushed with anger. Before I even had a chance to sit down, she unloaded on me. "I'm done with this, Jack. I'm done with you choosing your father over this family," she shouted. I was too tired to argue, but I knew this wasn't going to blow over like the other fights. She wasn't just upset, she was furious. I tried to calm her down, explaining that today had been especially difficult and that my dad needed me more than ever, but she wasn't listening. She was too far gone. "You know what, Jack? It's either him or us. You need to make a choice. I can't keep living like this," she said, crossing her arms and staring me down. That hit me hard. I just stood there for a second, trying to process what she had said. Abel had been angry before, but she had never given me an ultimatum like that. I couldn't believe she was asking me to choose between my dying father and my own family. I tried to tell her that my dad wouldn't be around forever, that I was just trying to do right by him in his last years, but that only seemed to make her angrier. "So what? I'm supposed to wait around until he dies? How long is that going to take, Jack? Weeks, months, years?" She snapped. The words hit me like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe how cold she was being. This wasn't the woman I married. She was talking about my father as if he was just some burden that needed to go away. I could feel my temper rising, but I didn't want to make things worse by yelling back at her. I just stood there, stunned. "If you can't make a decision, I will," she said, and then stormed off into the bedroom. I stood in the living room staring at the wall, trying to figure out what had just happened. How had we gotten here? We used to be so close, but now it felt like we were miles apart. The ultimatum hung in the air for the rest of the day. We barely spoke after that. She spent most of the afternoon in the bedroom, slamming doors and muttering under her breath while I tried to distract the kids. That night, things escalated again. She came out of the bedroom and started packing a bag. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me she was leaving. She said, She needed space to think, that she couldn't handle living in the same house as me while I kept putting my dad first. I tried to stop her, but she was already set on going. She packed up her things and walked out the door without even saying goodbye to the kids. I didn't know what to do. Part of me was relieved to have a break from the constant fighting, but another part of me was in shock. Was this it? Was our marriage really falling apart? I sat on the couch for a while, just staring at the door she had walked out of, wondering if she was ever going to come back. That night, I put the kids to bed and sat alone in the quiet house. The weight of her ultimatum was still hanging over me, but deep down, I already knew my answer. There was no way I was going to abandon my father. Not now, not when he needed me the most. But what did that mean for my marriage? I wasn't sure anymore. The next morning, Abel still hadn't come home. I got up, made breakfast for the kids, and went about the day like usual, but the house felt emptier without her there. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but I knew things would never be the same. When Abel left that night, part of me expected her to come back after a day or two. I figured she just needed time to cool off, but days turned into a week, and the more time passed, the more I realized that maybe she wasn't planning on coming back at all. The weird thing was, I wasn't as upset as I thought I'd be. In fact, I started to feel relieved. It's strange, right? I'd spent so much time fighting with her, constantly walking on eggshells, that when she was gone, the house actually felt calmer. The kids asked about her at first, especially my youngest, but I told them she needed some time away and that we'd be okay. I didn't try to cover up how tense things had been, but I also didn't want to put all that on them. They deserved some peace too. With Abel gone, I found myself able to focus more on my dad and the kids without feeling like I was caught in the middle of a war zone. I could take my dad to dialysis without rushing back to deal with another argument. I didn't have to worry about getting criticized for every little thing, whether it was being 5 minutes late or not folding the laundry just right. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after she left, I got a knock on the door. I wasn't surprised to see a delivery guy standing there with an envelope. Divorce papers. I stood there, holding the envelope for a minute, just staring at it. I knew it was coming, but still, seeing it in my hands made it real. I went inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened it up. It was all laid out there in black and white. She wanted a divorce, no custody of the kids, and no claim to any of my assets. I'll admit I was shocked at how quickly she sent them over, but the fact that she didn't want custody of the kids, that hit me harder than anything. She just walked away like we didn't even matter to her anymore. No fight, no negotiation, because she didn't want them. That's when I knew she wasn't coming back. Not for me, not for the kids. I signed the papers that same day. I didn't see the point in dragging it out. If that's what she wanted, fine. There was no use trying to fix something that had been broken for a long time. I sent the papers back and didn't think much about it after that. I didn't even call her. What was there to say? We were done. A few days later, she called me screaming on the phone about how I could just sign the papers without even trying to talk to her. She couldn't believe I didn't at least try to beg her to stay. Her mom even got on the phone, yelling about how a real man would have fought for his marriage. I couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous it all sounded. Why would I fight for someone who didn't want to stay? She was the one who left, not me. I told her straight up, "You wanted the divorce? I'm just giving you what you asked for." That only made her angrier. She started throwing all kinds of insults at me, calling me selfish, saying I was a terrible husband, and how she could have done better. But honestly, it didn't bother me. In fact, the more she talked, the more I realized that this was the right decision. She had already checked out of the marriage a long time ago, and so had I, really. I was just trying to hold things together for the kids, but now that it was over, I could finally breathe. After that, things got quiet again. No more fighting, no more stress, just me, the kids, and my dad. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than the constant chaos I'd been living in before. I started to feel like I was actually getting control of my life again. Without Abel's drama hanging over my head, I could focus on what really mattered: my kids, my work, and my dad. I didn't expect it, but her leaving was probably the best thing that could have happened. After the divorce, I made a big decision. I packed up the kids and we moved in with my dad. It just made sense. My dad was getting weaker and I needed to be closer to him. Plus, the house was way bigger than ours and the kids loved being there. They'd get to see their grandpa every day and I wouldn't have to juggle trips back and forth between two homes. It was a fresh start for all of us. The first few weeks were an adjustment, but honestly, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My dad was thrilled to have us there. He may not have shown it in the past, but I could tell he was happy to have the company. And the kids, they were all over him. They'd run around the house, pulling him into games, asking him to tell stories, or just sitting with him in the living room while he watched TV. It was like they brought new life into him. There was something about seeing him with the kids that made me realize I made the right choice. He wasn't just a patient anymore, someone I had to take care of. He was their grandpa again. Laughing with them, playing, and even spoiling them when he could. It reminded me of my own childhood, back when he was full of energy, always cracking jokes and making us laugh. Those moments were rare now, but when they happened, they felt priceless. With us living there, I didn't have to rush through the dialysis trips anymore. I could take my time, help him to the car, and drive carefully instead of speeding through traffic. The ride to the clinic became less about stress and more about spending time with him. We'd talk about all kinds of things, old memories, the kids, even random stuff like sports or the weather. I realized how much I had missed those conversations. At home, things were calmer too. The kids had their routines, and my dad's caregiver was a godsend. She started helping with the kids after school, and it gave me the flexibility to focus on work without constantly worrying about what was happening at home. I was able to work from home more often, which meant I could spend more time with my dad and the kids. Everything felt like it was finally falling into place. Abel hadn't really been in the picture since the divorce. She didn't ask for custody, and she hadn't made much of an effort to see the kids. It was like she had checked out of their lives completely. I could see that it hurt them, especially my youngest, but I did everything I could to fill that gap. We stayed busy with walks, movie nights, visiting the park. Anything to keep their minds off the fact that their mom wasn't around. Despite all the changes, I noticed something amazing happening. My dad, even with his health struggles, seemed happier than he'd been in years. Maybe it was having the kids around, or maybe it was just having family back in the house. But he seemed more at peace. He still needed help, and his body was weak, but his spirit was stronger. He'd sit out on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the kids play in the yard, and for the first time in a long while, I'd catch him smiling, genuinely smiling. I didn't expect things to work out this well. Moving in with my dad was supposed to be temporary, just until we figured out the next steps, but now I couldn't imagine going back to the way things were. The house felt like home again, not just for me, but for my kids and for my dad too. We weren't just getting by anymore. We were living, really living. Not long after we settled into my dad's house, he passed away. It happened quietly in his sleep one night after playing with the kids. He went to bed, and the next morning, he just didn't wake up. The doctor said it was peaceful, and that brought me some comfort. Still, it hit hard. Even though I knew this was coming, losing him felt like losing a part of myself. The kids were devastated too. They'd gotten so close to him in those last few months, and now he was just gone. We had the funeral a few days later, and I was overwhelmed by how many people showed up. Old friends, family, even some of his business contacts. People came to pay their respects, and it made me realize just how many lives he had touched over the years. For a guy who didn't always show his feelings, he sure left an impact on a lot of people. A few weeks after the funeral, I got a call from my dad's lawyer. He wanted me to come in to talk about my dad's will. Honestly, I didn't think much of it. My dad had told me years ago that he was donating everything to charity, and I had made my peace with that. I didn't expect anything to be left for me. Still, I went thinking it was just a formality. When I got to the lawyer's office, I was surprised to see members of the foundation already there. I assumed they were there to finalize the transfer of my dad's business and assets, but when the lawyer started reading the will, My jaw practically hit the floor. My dad had left everything to me. The business, the house, the wealth, all of it. I couldn't believe it. I actually interrupted the lawyer, asking if this was some kind of mistake, but he smiled and told me that my dad had never changed his will. He had always intended for me to inherit everything. The charity donation thing, it was never real. He had just said it to push me into taking over the family business, and when I didn't, he let me think I was cut out. But in reality, he never disowned me. I sat there in shock, trying to wrap my head around it. My father, who I thought had written me off, had actually left me everything. I felt a flood of emotions: relief, guilt, sadness. I wished I could have told him how much that meant to me. All this time, I had thought I'd let him down, but in the end, he was still proud of me. The lawyer even said my dad admired the fact that I had followed my passion, even if it wasn't the path he had wanted for me. After that meeting, I had a lot to think about. The lawyer told me I could take over the business if I wanted to, or I could let the foundation continue to manage it. At first, I wasn't sure. I'd spent years in tech, building a career in a completely different field. But now, with everything in front of me, I started thinking about what my dad had built and what it meant to him. Maybe this was my chance to honor his legacy. I went home that night and told the kids what had happened. I told them about the will, about how Grandpa had left them something, too, money for when they turned 18. They were too young to fully understand, but they were excited. We decided to visit Grandpa's grave the next day and bring flowers. It felt like the right thing to do to thank him for everything, even though he wasn't there to hear it. Over the next few weeks, I made my decision. I was going to take back the business. I wasn't doing it for the money or the prestige. I was doing it because it felt like the right way to honor my father. He had built something incredible, and even though I hadn't wanted it before, I realized now that it was part of who I was, part of our family. So I quit my job and stepped into the role of running the business. It's been challenging for sure, but I feel like I'm finally doing something that connects me to my dad in a way I never expected. And the best part, the kids and I are doing well. Life is busy, but it's good. I think my dad would be proud of that.